Hello everyone, John AG here. Welcome back to my channel, Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, real market updates that everyone cannot tell you. So please subscribe this channel and love you, all of my subscribers, for your support. And please watch this video till the very end because YouTube will not push my videos to more people. We are standing on the absolute edge of a global economic shift so massive, so completely irreversible, that history books will eventually divide the 21st century into two distinct eras. Everything that happened before 2026 and the entirely new paradigm that unfolded after. Look around you. You can feel it in your bones. There is an undeniable tension in the air. It is a silent, invisible pressure squeezing the middle class, confusing the wealthy, and terrifying the unprepared. We are currently living in a bizarre paradox, a world of extreme, dizzying wealth creation happening entirely parallel to widespread, quiet desperation. On one hand, we are watching the broader stock market race toward unimaginable heights. We are seeing artificial intelligence reshape the very fabric of human labor, with technology monopolies pouring a staggering, unprecedented amount of capital into infrastructure in this year alone. It is a technological arms race that makes the early internet boom look like a minor historical footnote. But on the other hand, step away from the financial districts and walk down Main Street. What do you actually see? You see the cost of living permanently resetting to a level that normal wages simply cannot catch. You see the energy markets convulsing violently as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and Eastern Europe threaten to permanently choke the global supply of oil, gas, and critical minerals. You see everyday, hardworking people trapped in homes they cannot afford to sell because of entrenched mortgage rates, and younger generations feeling entirely priced out of the modern American dream. The mainstream financial media refers to this simply as a complex macroeconomic environment. They use these sterile academic terms to soften the reality of the situation. I prefer to call it what it truly is: the Great Squeeze. Inside every period of massive historical disruption and human panic, there exists a mathematical transfer of energy and capital. The wealth of the world is not evaporating. Wealth never actually disappears. It simply transfers hands. It moves from the uninformed to the informed. It moves from the reactive to the proactive. It is flowing right now, like a subterranean river under your feet, at this very second. Today, we are going to look closely at the internal grinding gears of the global machine. I'm going to explain exactly why the rules of money have fundamentally changed, why the financial strategies that worked perfectly in 2019 are dangerously obsolete in 2026, and how you can position yourself for what I mathematically believe is the last profound wealth opportunity for a decade. This is about preserving your capital, protecting your family, securing your personal sovereignty, and ensuring that when the dust of this decade finally settles, you are standing on solid, unshakable ground. To understand where we are going, you must first brutally and honestly accept where we are on this 24th of May, 2026. We are living in a bifurcated two-speed reality. For the last 3 years, financial talking heads have been debating endlessly whether we would see a hard landing or a soft landing following the inflation crisis of the early 2020s. What they missed entirely is that the economy never landed. It fractured. It split into two entirely different realities coexisting in the exact same physical space. The first reality is the high-speed track. This is the economy of capital, of autonomous technology, and of defense infrastructure. If you own the companies that are building the digital and physical backbone of the future, you are experiencing a boom that rivals the roaring 20s. The massive technology monopolies are no longer just software companies. They have evolved into digital nation-states. They are laying down thousands of miles of fiber optics, buying up the aging power grid, and constructing data centers the size of small cities just to feed the insatiable computing demands of modern technology. The second reality is the low-speed track. This is the economy of labor, of consumers, and of fiat currency. This is the track that the vast majority of the world's population is currently sweating on. In this economy, your purchasing power is evaporating right in front of your eyes. Global headline inflation, spurred on by violent energy supply shocks and the fracturing of geopolitical alliances abroad, is acting like an invisible, inescapable tax on your daily survival. The cost of energy, the cost of shelter, and the cost of basic nutrition have established a new, elevated concrete floor. Prices are not going back down to the levels we were used to. This is happening because we have fundamentally broken the old world order. For the past 40 years, the global population benefited from a very specific, very lucky macroeconomic cocktail: rapid globalization, cheap and abundant energy, and continuously falling interest rates. We shipped our manufacturing to places where human labor was cheap. We kept our supply chains incredibly fragile, optimized entirely for just-in-time delivery to maximize corporate profits. And, most importantly, central banks flooded the global system with cheap, artificially suppressed money. That era is completely, irreversibly dead. We have entered the era of fragmentation. Nations are aggressively hoarding physical resources. Supply chains are being violently pulled back home, which is an incredibly, massively expensive undertaking. When geopolitical alliances fracture and trust evaporates, energy instantly becomes a weapon. In this new era, the Federal Reserve and global central banks are completely trapped. They desperately want to cut interest rates to provide political relief, but they mathematically cannot. The sticky, structural inflation driven by these global energy shocks keeps their hands tied behind their backs. This means the era of free money is over. We are firmly entrenched in a regime of higher for longer cost of capital. If your entire financial strategy relies on the government stepping in to save you, or on interest rates miraculously returning to zero, you are holding a map to a world that is already burned down. We must address the most significant wealth transfer vehicle of our entire generation: artificial intelligence. I ask you to set aside the preconceived notions of what AI was a few years ago. In 2023 and 2024, AI was a novelty. It was an assistant that could write a poem for your kid's homework or help you outline an email to your boss. It was a co-pilot. Today, we have crossed the Rubicon into the agentic era. AI systems are now autonomous agents with transactional authority. They are no longer just summarizing data, they are making executive decisions. They are executing complex trades, managing global compliance protocols, writing production-level code, and doing the highly paid analytical work of entire corporate departments. Major Wall Street banks and multinational corporations have quietly deployed these digital coworkers. They are using autonomous models that settle routine trades, conduct massive fraud investigations, and optimize global logistics with absolutely zero human intervention. This is a profoundly terrifying moment for the white-collar labor force. Imagine a mid-level manager who makes a six-figure salary, requires health insurance, takes paid vacation, and expects a retirement match. From a purely corporate, mathematical perspective, that human is an expensive liability. Now imagine an autonomous AI agent that can execute the majority of that job in a fraction of the time, for a fraction of the cost, without ever sleeping. This represents a human tragedy on a mass scale, but it is a masterstroke for corporate profitability. A corporation does not pay healthcare for an autonomous software agent. It does not pay for sick leave, it does not worry about unionization, and it certainly does not pay for expensive downtown office space. As these massive companies replace mid-level human labor with high-level agentic AI, their profit margins are expanding violently. This is the exact reason why stock market headlines constantly flash all-time highs, even as the average worker feels financially suffocated at the grocery store. The market is entirely forward-looking, and it is pricing in the most massive expansion of corporate margins in the entire history of capitalism. To run these autonomous AI agents, you need an unfathomable, staggering amount of raw computing power. You need specialized semiconductor chips. You need massive liquid cooling systems. You need data centers the size of professional football stadiums. And above all else, you need energy. Artificial intelligence is, fundamentally, the physical process of turning raw electricity into digital intelligence. The companies that produce the chips, the companies that build the physical data centers, and the companies that supply the baseload power to keep these machines running, these are the modern-day picks and shovels of the greatest gold rush in human history. If you are solely trading your time for a paycheck right now, your labor is actively being devalued by this technology every single day. The only mathematical way to survive and thrive is to immediately position yourself on the side of capital. You must own a piece of the physical infrastructure that is replacing human effort. You must transition your mindset from being merely a participant in the economy to being an owner of the systems that dictate it. While the average retail investor is entirely distracted by the daily chaos of political theater, a massive, silent shift has occurred in the very plumbing of the global financial system. The private credit market has transformed into a $41 trillion behemoth operating completely in the shadows. Traditionally, if a massive company wanted to build a new factory, acquire a competitor, or fund a massive commercial real estate project, they would walk into a traditional bank and ask for a loan. But because of the rolling banking crises we witnessed a few years ago, and because of incredibly strict, punishing new regulations from the government, traditional banks have been forced to step back. They are holding tighter to their capital to pass stress tests. They simply are not lending money into the economy like they used to. The entities stepping in to fund the world are private credit funds, massive asset managers, and sovereign wealth pools from the Middle East and Asia. We are witnessing the complete merging of public and private markets. High growth, highly profitable private companies are staying private longer. They are growing to massive, multi-billion dollar valuations without ever going public through an initial public offering because they no longer need the stock market to raise money. They are funding themselves entirely through private credit. The traditional middle-class playbook of building wealth by buying a standard index fund and blindly waiting 40 years is yielding lower real returns when adjusted for true compounding inflation. The real, life-changing generational wealth is currently being generated in private markets, in direct corporate lending, and in alternative assets. The institutional money managers know this. They are aggressively moving their capital out of cash and low-yielding government bonds and pouring it into private credit, prime real estate, and hard physical assets. They are securing high, floating rate yields that easily outpace inflation, while the average retail investor is left holding depreciating fiat currency in a traditional savings account that yields a fraction of the true inflation rate. The financial system is bifurcating right before our eyes. The velvet rope is being drawn closed. Retail access to these private markets is finally beginning to open up through secondary markets, interval funds, and specialized high-yield investment vehicles. The absolute key is that you have to possess the financial education to understand these complex instruments. You have to stop playing the rigged game that the legacy banking system wants you to play and start playing the exact same game the institutional titans are playing behind closed doors. We must have a very grounded, deeply honest conversation about the actual money sitting in your checking account right now. Cash is a depreciating liability. We are living in an era of pure fiscal dominance. Governments around the entire world have borrowed so much money to fund global crises, foreign proxy wars, and massive bloated infrastructure projects that they mathematically cannot afford to pay it back with sound money. Global public debt has reached catastrophic, almost incomprehensible levels. When a sovereign government cannot pay its debt, it only has three choices. They can default, which would collapse the entire global financial system overnight. They can raise taxes to politically impossible levels, which would cause an immediate, violent revolution in the streets. Or they can inflate the debt away by debasing the underlying currency. Every single time in human history, without exception, they choose the third option. It is the invisible tax. It is the coward's default. They will keep expanding the money supply to monetize their deficits. This means the purchasing power of the currency you work 40 to 60 grueling hours a week to earn is bleeding out, second by second, every single day. The inflation we are experiencing is not a temporary glitch. It is a deeply structural, permanent feature of the new global macroeconomic system. When fiat currency loses its trust, its utility, and its value, smart capital always flees to real assets. This is the great silent rotation we are witnessing at this very moment. Institutional capital is moving rapidly out of paper promises and into physical reality. Look at what is happening geopolitically. Central banks, especially those in the East, are buying physical gold at record historic paces. They are preparing for a multipolar world where the US dollar is no longer the sole, uncontested, weaponized reserve currency. They are aggressively anchoring their national wealth to a physical element that cannot be printed by a central bank. Gold has returned to its ancient role as the ultimate settlement layer for sovereign wealth. If the most powerful financial institutions in the world are hoarding gold, you must ask yourself why you are holding paper. Equally critical, and perhaps even more explosive in the coming decade, is silver. Silver exists in a beautiful, highly pressured paradox. It is a monetary metal with thousands of years of history, yet it is simultaneously the most highly conductive industrial metal on the planet. The massive green energy transition, the deployment of billions of solar panels, the electrification of the global vehicle fleet, and the explosive AI data center boom require physical, hard materials. You simply cannot build a digitized, electrified future without hundreds of millions of ounces of industrial silver. The above-ground stockpiles are being quietly drained by industrial demand, while monetary demand wakes up to the debasement of fiat currency. Beyond precious metals, look at energy and broad commodities. In a fragmented, deglobalizing world where supply chains are weaponized, whoever controls the raw energy controls the future of human civilization. Oil, natural gas, uranium, and copper are the vital organs of the global economy. The wealth opportunity here is profound and historic. If you can position your capital into the foundational, unshakable pillars of human civilization, energy, monetary metals like gold and silver, industrial metals, agriculture, and secure infrastructure, you will ride the massive wave of this institutional capital rotation. You will be sitting patiently on the assets that the entire world desperately needs to survive, rather than holding the paper currency that the world is actively trying to devalue. You might be watching this, looking at your family, looking at your bank account, and wondering how to protect the people you love from the economic storm raging outside. I want to deeply validate exactly what you are feeling. If you are anxious, if you feel like the goalposts keep moving further and further away no matter how hard you work or how much you save, you are not crazy. You are wide awake. The system is moving the goalposts. The rules have fundamentally changed. But fear is not an investment strategy. Despair is not a financial plan. Paralysis will cost you everything. History is completely filled with moments of terrifying, chaotic transition. The fall of empires, the brutal disruption of the Industrial Revolution, the dawn of the commercial internet. In every single one of those massive eras, the vast majority of the masses were crushed by the shifting tectonic plates, but a small, dedicated minority built generational wealth that lasted for centuries. You must completely rewire your brain to view your cash not as a permanent store of value, but purely as a temporary melting holding vehicle before rapidly deploying it into hard assets and producing capital. You absolutely must maintain enough liquid cash for emergencies, but holding excess long-term wealth in fiat currency is financial suicide. You must own the physical infrastructure of the future. Look at the physical supply chain. Find the companies that make the liquid cooling systems for the data centers, the ones that mine the uranium that generates the baseload nuclear power, the ones that pull the copper and silver out of the earth required for the semiconductor chips. You have to diversify your net worth outside of the digital centralized illusion. Physical gold stored securely, real estate in safe, resource-rich jurisdictions, and critical commodities provide heavy anchors in physical reality that central bankers and politicians simply cannot print into oblivion with the push of a button. The ultimate hedge against a fragmented, chaotic, unpredictable world is your own personal capability. Pay down all variable rate, toxic consumer debt immediately. Build multiple, uncorrelated streams of income that are not wholly reliant on a single, fragile corporate employer who might replace you with software. Learn incredibly valuable skills that autonomous AI cannot replicate, like complex human negotiation, high-level emotional intelligence, physical trades, electrical engineering, and strategic empathetic leadership. Your true wealth is not just the flashing green numbers on a brokerage screen. Your true wealth is your physical health, your trusted network of allies, the resilience of your family, and your unshakable peace of mind in the face of chaos. We are living in a time of profound, inescapable consequence. The decisions you make over the next 12 to 18 months will dictate the financial trajectory of your bloodline for the next century. I say that because I respect you entirely too much to lie to you. The mainstream media and the political class will keep attempting to feed the public bread and circuses. They will keep the masses distracted with mindless political theater, culture wars, and trivial debates, while the absolute greatest transfer of wealth in human history occurs silently in the shadows. Here on Aurex, we deal strictly in reality. We deal in strength. We deal in the unvarnished, brutal truth of how the global machine actually works, so that we can leverage it to our advantage. You have the attention span, the grit, and the intellectual courage to face the future head-on. You are exactly the type of person who is going to thrive, build, and conquer in the volatile years to come. We are actively building an impenetrable community of sovereign, educated, and prepared individuals who flatly refuse to be collateral damage in a changing world order. Let the reality of the situation focus you like a laser. The window of opportunity is wide open right now, but it is closing faster than anyone realizes as institutional capital sets its concrete positions for the rest of the decade. Take massive action today. Educate yourself relentlessly. Protect your family fiercely. History is not just a series of events that happens to us while we watch from the sidelines. History is something we build with our own two hands. Thank you so much for your time, your unwavering trust, and your incredible support. If you found deep value in this breakdown, make sure you have hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below telling me exactly what steps you are taking right now to prepare for the 2026 economy, and share this video with someone you truly care about protecting. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay sovereign. This is John A.G.,